Hi, this is Emerald and welcome to the Diamond Net, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the self. I'm currently reading Peter Ralston's The Book of Not Knowing, and it's all about basically getting yourself into a state of openness and not knowing so that you could potentially have a breakthrough of enlightenment. And what enlightenment is where you realize your true nature, your true being beyond what your self-concept is. Now, a lot of times people will think that they know who they are, and they have like a list of traits and concepts and ideas that they relate back to themselves and that they identify with. But this identification only happens within the mind. It's only a concept, but it's a very, very powerful illusion that these things actually equal out to ourselves, because it's how we describe ourselves and how other people describe us. So we get this sense that this is actually us, but it's not true because those are just concepts that we've laid on top of ourselves. So the real self is what lies up underneath all of those things. And the real self is actually an indescribable thing, and it's something that you have to experience firsthand in your own reality. So in the Book of Not Knowing, Ralston brought up a really, really interesting metaphor for how the self is created. And when I say self, I mean the smaller self, the egoic self, not the higher self that is beyond comprehension, but our label of ourself, our idea of ourself. So he described it as kind of a snowball effect that's constantly snowballing. So you start off when you're maybe a toddler or so, whenever you start creating your self-concept with a very, very small handful of snow. And then as you go along, you start rolling the snow up, and the snow accumulates layer after layer after layer until you have this really, really complex thing going on. So, for example, let's say that as a child you were told that you were an intelligent person, and regardless of your actual intelligence or non-intelligence, you thought of yourself this way, and so intelligence became part of your self-concept. And so maybe from being intelligent, maybe some people called you a nerd, and then there was some self-esteem things that branched off of there. And, maybe you rose up against that eventually, and you were able to be a resilient person. And, you see how these concepts kind of stack one on top of the other on top of the other until you have this really, really complex self-concept. And essentially, none of that's actually descriptive of what you truly are. In a sense, you have a lower self and a higher self. It's descriptive of the lower self in a very practical sense. People can recognize you by those traits. People can describe you that way. You can think of yourself that way, and it works very well for social interactions. But for the truth of the matter, these things aren't really the real you. And so if you predicate your happiness upon these traits that you've learned about yourself, so let's go back to the intelligence example. If you think, oh, I'm an intelligent person and therefore that's what makes me valuable, because intelligence has nothing to do with you, you're never really going to be able to be satisfied and happy. You're always going to be having to prove your own intelligence to yourself to just feel a sense of relief and baseline happiness. But in order to actually be able to experience a real authenticity and a real depth of feeling, you're going to have to see what you are beyond your own concepts of yourself. And so it's the process of seeking enlightenment is sort of like just layer by layer, just removing the snow that's accumulated until you end up with nothing left. And in a sense, you're not really getting rid of the self-concept, but what you're doing is you're changing your relationship to it. So when you take off all of the snow, so to speak, and you recognize that's not me, you can use anything from that snow pile that you want to use, like for practical everyday things. Like your intellect doesn't go away just because you're not identifying yourself as intelligent. but you're realizing that me as an intelligent person is an illusory thing. It's been a concept and a label that I've put on myself. And so the idea is that once you get to a certain point and you deconstruct a lot of your beliefs about yourself and about the world, that you can basically make yourself ripe for a breakthrough of enlightenment. And what enlightenment is it's a complete inversion in perspective. What happens is you stop seeing yourself as this small, separate entity moving around in an infinitely large and hostile universe, to really realizing that you are the container for all of existence, and that you're also an integral part of the fabric of what is. And so this is why I call my channel the Diamond Net, because it deals with that dichotomy of being a small thing in an infinite universe and being all of infinity itself. And these two things are very paradoxical, but they're both true at the same time insofar as the human lens can understand it. So the diamond net of Indra is a metaphor for existence, and it says that all of existence is a giant net, and that at each of the vortices of that net lies a jewel. And because the net goes on forever and ever in every single direction, there's an infinite number of jewels. But because each jewel reflects every other jewel in the net, there's only one jewel. So what enlightenment is realizing that you are the jewel that reflects all the other jewels in the net, and that you're also a single jewel on that net. Now, it doesn't really help for me to tell you these things. These are just metaphors and frameworks and thought stories, and they can never actually get you to the real experience of enlightenment. However, when it comes to enlightenment, the way you get there is by seeking to figure out what's true beyond your beliefs and assumptions about yourself and about the world. And so don't just add that as another thought story. Use it to actually deconstruct things if you're wanting to seek enlightenment. So you're going to basically be wanting to remove the layers of snow, because enlightenment isn't about learning anything, it's about unlearning. It's about busting through false beliefs. And the only way that you can actually get there is through seeking what's true. So you might start by saying, okay, well, if I'm an intelligent person, I'm going to use that metaphor again. What does it mean to be an intelligent person? Does it mean I have to be intelligent all the time? If I do something stupid one time, does that mean that I'm not an intelligent person? And what standards by which am I judging intelligence? Am I intelligent in music? Am I intelligent in math? What if I'm really, really bad at writing? Does that make me unintelligent? And just start looking at that evaluation that you've made of yourself from every angle until you can pull it off. And then you're also going to want to be looking at what emotional attachments you have to that. So maybe you thought, oh, I'm an intelligent person and therefore that makes me valuable. And in a sense, you can use intelligence for many things, and it's a very useful trait to have, but there's no such thing as value beyond what's in the human mind. Like how we can look at something and then say, oh, well, that's good for us and that's bad for us. But those are essentially labels that we've placed upon those things too. So then you want to look at value and say, okay, what does value actually mean? Is it something that's out here in the world, or is it something that's just in my internal experience? And what if I valued chocolate ice cream and I thought that that was the best kind of ice cream, and then somebody else hated chocolate ice cream? Does that then negate the realness of the value that I've placed upon chocolate ice cream? And so you want to really dive down deep into these concepts so that you can kind of melt the snow until you end up with nothing. And when you have nothing, you can be as you truly are, beyond all beliefs and assumptions that you have about yourself. So when you're left over with nothing and you can get back to your preconditioned state, that's when you can have a breakthrough of enlightenment and truly live in tune with your higher self and not just your lower egoic self. Alright, so that's all that I have for you for now. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and click the like button below and hit the subscribe button. If you're interested in hearing more personal stories from me, where I talk about things that are very personal to me in terms of where I'm going on my path, then you can check out thediamondnet.org, where I have my personal blog. But other than that, that's all I have for you today, and until next time, keep becoming more you.